Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to another episode of the Iron Life podcast. I got a killer guest in-house for you today. It's my man, Calvin Hartman. If you guys don't know Calvin, he is the head strength conditioning coach over at Defranco's gym here in the Dirty Jers, East Rutherford, New Jersey, with my man, Joe Defranco. And him and I, we had a great conversation today. We chopped it up a lot about Calvin's story, but also about training, things that you could do to simplify your nutrition, simplify your training, some of the similarities and differences between training athletes and training the general population. And we had a great conversation. We even talked about, you know, one of my arch nemesis, the guy who got me into training, Mark Batista. If you're listening, I'm calling you out. But we had a great conversation. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. But before I get to the episode today, for all of you gym owners out there listening, I want to tell you real quick about the Iron Business Weekend. So this is a 2-day mastermind weekend over here in East Rutherford, New Jersey. It's actually going to be at Defranco's gym. So Joe D and myself are going to be running the Iron Business Weekend for all gym owners who want to grow and scale their business. Now, guys, let me tell you, we ran the first one back in March. And when I tell you, and I'm not just saying this, it was truly a fucking life-changing weekend. Life-changing because, one, we taught I think it was 7 or 8 gym owners from all around the world. I think, we had US, we had Canada, but we taught them strategies to grow and scale their gyms into a multiple 6-figure gym. So just what you're going to learn as far as building wealth and developing or building a profitable, highly profitable gym business, that alone is obviously incredibly valuable. But on the other side of it, man, it's the connections and the relationships that were built over that 2-day weekend. We got people that have built bonds and made friends and friendships that are going to last a lifetime because, when you go through weekends like this, I don't know if you've ever been to an event like that, but when you go through them, you really get to know people on a deeper level. And so the connections and also just, being with for a full weekend, other gym owners, people that are struggling and kind of going through the same obstacles that you're going, you guys are bouncing ideas off of each other. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. It really is a powerful, powerful weekend. And not only that, I mean, we're having dinner together. We last time we did an escape room, a bunch of meatheads in an escape room trying to get out is always funny to watch. But we always have excursions planned for these. So it's going to be a great time. It's August 10th, August 11th. We only open this for 12 people. So it's only open for 12 gym owners. We want to keep it small and intimate so we could really do a deep dive into your business. I think right now we're down to 10 spots. I think we just kind of opened this up. 2 spots are already gone. So they're going to go quick. Guys, if you want to learn more and see if this is the right fit for your business, then here's what I want you to do. Before you listen to this show, go to ironbusinessblueprint.com/weekend. Fill out an application, book a call with me. We'll chat. We'll talk about your business. We'll see where you're at. And if this is the right fit for you, you could join us for the Iron Business the Iron Business Weekend here in New Jersey, August 10th, August 11th. Again, that's ironbusinessblueprint.com/weekend to hang out with Joe D, myself, and 11 other gym owners here in New Jersey on August 10th and 11th. You do not want to miss it, so go there now. And then once you're done, come back and listen to my conversation with my main man, Calvin Hartman. Calvin, what's up, brother? How are you?
What's going on, Chris? Pumped to be here, man. Thank you.
Pumped to have you, man. So we met, what year was it? Over at, what was the name of the gym where I recorded that first podcast with Blanco? Or Bronco?
Bronco.
I always call him Blanco.
Yeah.
Bronco. Yeah, sorry, Bronco. Sorry.
If
My
he's listening,
bro. Yeah.
sorry. That was like, I think I hadn't started at Defranco's yet.
No.
So it was like 2018 or 19, I think.
Yeah? I thought it was even earlier than that, but maybe you're right.
Dude, time is like
it flies by, man.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I met you there. That was the first, and oddly enough, dude, it's funny. It comes full circle. That was my first podcast that I've ever recorded.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you have told me that before.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was the first podcast that I did. And then I didn't see you, maybe it was a year later, I saw you deadlifting dump trucks in Kenny Santucci's basement at Strong, New York. And I think that was 2017.
Not quite, but yeah. I remember seeing you there. How many episodes in are you now?
This is, I think, like 174, 175,
wow.
something like that.
That's awesome.
That's for my show and then other podcasts I've been on. But that was the first. That was the start of it all, man.
Wow. So I was there for the start. Very cool.
Yeah, man. So it's cool to have you on. And, for everybody listening, why don't you just kind of fill us in on who you are, what you do, and we'll kick it off with that.
Yeah. So my name's Calvin. I don't even know what my title is at Defranco's, but Joe Defranco, the legend in the industry, has a small gym in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and it's only part of what he does. So he's got, a lot of stuff going on. He's got his own podcast. He's got guys in the WWE he's training, and he still has a small studio gym where we do mostly personal training. And he's gotten to the point where like he kind of needs somebody else to run it. So a couple of years ago, he turned over the keys, and I've been off and running ever since. So I guess I'm like head coach, runner of the gym, if you will.
Yeah, no, like a facility leader.
That'd be a good way to put it.
Yeah, got it. So how did you end up meeting Joe and getting that position, man? Because I'll tell you, all of us growing up, how old are you?
Going to be 29 tomorrow.
Oh. Happy birthday.
Thank you, bro.
So I'm a little bit older than you. I just turned 37.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm sure that as you were coming up in the industry, you were following Joe just like we all were, right?
Yeah.
How did you end up coming to meet Joe and start working for him?
Yeah, so the summer after I graduated college, I was trying to figure out, what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to train people somehow. And that was the summer that I found Joe's podcast. I was studying for my CSCS and I had no idea where I was going to go, where I was going to end up, but knew I wanted to train people. And I forget how I first found Joe, but found his podcasts, and especially the early ones are so good, just so filled with information. And it was like exactly what I needed, because I was reading the CSCS textbook and it's like super sciencey and not very practical advice at all. And then, I'm in my head, I'm trying to figure out, how do you apply this stuff?
Yeah.
It's great in theory, but, I can't imagine doing this with a client. And then finding Joe and finding his early podcasts, and it kind of clicked. It was like, oh, like this is how it applies. And it kind of helped me bridge the gap.
What year was that?
So I graduated in 2017. So it was summer of 2017.
2017, okay.
Yeah. And that first summer, I must have I think I listened to every single podcast he had. Like I was doing a bunch of different stuff like odds and ends, trying to make ends meet. I was training some clients at Apex. Apex Vaulting was Bronco's gym.
Yep.
And working for a chiropractor in the evenings, and then studying for my CSCS kind of like during the day. And I kind of did that for a number of years. And then my girlfriend, she's my wife now, was getting into something called skeleton, which a lot of people probably don't even know what that is.
No.
But if you've ever seen bobsled, like in the Winter Olympics, it's the one-person version of that.
Okay.
So you go head first down this sled at breakneck speed, and you try to get the best possible time you can.
Okay.
So she was getting into that, which is a crazy story in and of itself. But
yeah, I think you got to tell me that later.
I was training her for this because I had some knowledge of training, but not nearly enough. And I had gotten into Joe's stuff, and I knew he was in New Jersey. So I was like, listen, if you really want to take this to the next level, like I'm just starting out learning, like I don't know as much as this Joe Defranco guy. We should email him and see if he'll train you, because this is what he specializes in, is getting, NFL players faster, especially that first, couple yards, which is really important for skeleton.
Right.
So she ends up reaching out, and Cam Joss was running the gym at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And to make a long story short, he ended up taking her on as a client. She worked with him for, I think, 2 years. And towards the end of his time there, he had brought up to her, hey, I'm actually looking for an intern and he had kind of hinted that he was going to move on soon, but nothing was set in stone.
Right.
And he knew that I was kind of doing all these odds and ends jobs and trying to make ends meet and didn't really have a career path set yet.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, you think your boyfriend would be interested in this internship? And she was like, I don't know. I'll talk to him about it. And I was totally game. And again, I had no idea where it was going to lead or end up. But so fast forward, that was fall of 2019.
Okay.
So I interned with Cam and Joe periodically from like October to February. And then February 2020 is when I took over the gym, started training the clients there. Then obviously COVID happened.
Perfect timing,
man. But yeah, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. So, I met Cam a handful of times.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to know him too well. Every time I kind of went to Joe's to see Joe, he would be there. But I never really got to know him too well. But I know he's a super smart guy. So I'm sure you learned a shit ton from Cam too.
Yeah, it was super cool learning under him because he was very generous with his time, and he was looking to get more into the college scene. So he was like, busy on that front, like, talking to college coaches and stuff. And, he had the clients at the gym, but it was very cool to learn under him. He's a super, super smart dude.
Yeah. Sharp guy, man. Every time I hear he was on Joe's podcast a handful of times. I don't think too many, maybe just like 2 or so. But every time I'm like, all right, this guy, he knows his shit.
Those were ones you had to listen to twice. They were like,
yes,
he's so smart. Sometimes I'm like, all right, I gotta rewind that. What did he say there?
I feel so stupid and inferior with some people when I hear them talking, and I'm like, shit, man. Like, I feel like I know my stuff here, but when you hear people talking like on that level, it's like, okay, let me get myself in check. I got to go back, listen to this, Like I was listening to Andy Galpin the other day. But he does a great job of simplifying things too,
Yes,
But guys like him, they have so much scientific knowledge where it's like, I don't know, your background, you have the more education than I do with the CSCS and going to school and stuff like that. So, but of course I have an understanding of some of the science stuff, but some of these guys could go so deep, especially a guy like Andy Galpin. Cam is a good example of that, but they go so deep into that stuff that it's like, wow, there's so much more, and it never stops too, because there's always new studies and papers. I'm not a big study guy where I'm looking at every single study. There's some guys that could just recite them like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but that's really cool, man. It's a cool story, and I think for anybody that may be listening right now that is maybe they want to get into this industry, I think it's a great example on how to put yourself out there, because you may not have reached out to Joe for the internship exclusively. You reached out for your girlfriend, but look how that kind of led to where you are now, right? And if you don't take that one step, if you don't take the initiative, who knows where you are now? I mean, I'm sure you're still in the industry and doing well, but getting the opportunity to work at Defranco's, I mean, that's a huge opportunity,
Totally, yeah. And I kind of brushed over it before, but like when I was doing those odds and end jobs and not knowing where I would end up, just saying yes to things. Like, the internship there was no guarantee. It wasn't like, hey, intern here and then you'll have a job. It was like, do you just want to learn under Joe? And I was just saying yes to everything. I'm like, yes, Yeah. So, yeah, to your point, it's like, even if you don't know where you're going to end up, I think saying yes to things is important.
And Joe told me stories about you. He said that they ordered that giant pull down that you guys have, that pull down low row combo that you guys have. And if for you guys listening, it's just this giant piece. And he said that it got delivered. The guy left it outside or something, and then it was in pieces. And he said he didn't even have to tell you. He showed up the next day, and the thing was put together. And he was like, "Wow, dude!" He's like, "That's the thing one of the things that really blew him away." And I think that's a great example for people listening too.
Yeah, just so that I don't want to correct you, but I don't want to take credit for stuff I didn't do either. So when it got delivered, I wasn't there. That thing was already put together when I was at the gym. I think the story you're referring to is we've moved things around in the gym a couple times, just trying to figure out, what the best use of space is and figure out where to put things. But so when I was still interning with Cam, Cam and I one Friday were like, we should rearrange this whole thing. Like, this doesn't make sense. Just the flow and how clients were moving from thing to thing.
Yeah.
So it was literally like a Friday afternoon. We were like, we have a couple hours between clients. We're just gonna rearrange the entire thing. And that was one of the things that I did help with, was we took that thing apart. So it was already put together somewhere in the gym, took it apart, had like a socket set, figured out how to take it apart, and then we did end up moving it like across the gym.
Okay.
So I could take credit for that, but I can't take credit for when it was first delivered.
There you go. Just that's just as valuable. But I'll say, for any of you listening who have never moved a fucking pull down, it is the worst piece of fitness equipment to move. They're giant, they're super tall, they're incredible. I mean, what's the weight stack on that one?
The one side, so it's double-sided. So one side goes like 300 pounds, and the other one's like maybe 250. Okay, so together, just the weight is 500. But then this thing is like a massive mess of steel.
Yeah, so you got like a 1,500-pound fucking thing that you're just trying to drag, and it's awkward. So anyway, it's a friggin' nightmare to move. So good for you, man. But I think that the whole point of that story is, listen, I think that there are, because we have a lot of interns that come to TTS, and most are great, but there are most that are kind of just expecting it to be easy. Like they take it as like, oh, this is an internship. Some of them capitalize and really take advantage of the opportunity, like you did. Some don't. And some people expect things to just be handed to them. And I think if you're listening to this, you want to get into the industry, man, like volunteering your time, interning, going above and beyond when you're doing an internship, if you want a job, if you want a career, even if you don't want to work at that facility, taking the time to go above and beyond is only going to fucking help you in anything in life, right? So I just think that story is really valuable for anybody who may be in college or just looking to get started in the industry. So shout out to you there, bro. Nice job.
Appreciate it. And dude, to your point, like when you first start, I didn't have any skills to offer. The only thing I had to offer was my time, So it was like, all right, well, how can I be valuable here? Because Cam is like a super genius, and Joe Defranco is Joe Defranco. I'm like, yeah, I can't offer these guys, insight on training or, how to make their programs better. But I was like, they need help with this. Like, they both don't really have time. I'll do that, So for anyone listening, it's like when you're first starting out, that's your value, is your time. Like what can you bring to the table, And if you're an intern, it's not your training knowledge. Right. Even if you have a degree and your CSCS and whatever, like I promise it's not the training knowledge just yet. It may be someday, but not yet.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. So tell me a little bit more about what's going on now. So 2020, you take that over, you take that role over. Yeah. Then COVID hits. Yeah. All right. So fill me in a little bit, like, before we kind of get deeper into this stuff. I'm just curious. So now you're the head guy at Defranco's. You're fired up. You're excited. March of 2020 hits. The world is shut down. What happens next?
So I remember I was still working for the chiropractor. Shout out Dr. Dorr. He actually officiated my wedding. Great dude. If anyone needs a chiropractor out there in the North Jersey area, Dr. Dorr's your guy.
Funny enough, before you move on, I think I'm going to be reaching out to him.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So I have a couple herniated discs in my cervical spine. Yeah. And I don't know if you could tell. So my right arm atrophied pretty significantly over the last couple of years, especially my delt.
I don't notice, bro. Your arm looks big.
Well, thanks, bro. I appreciate it. He's just trying to stroke my ego here, but I definitely lost a little bit of muscle on this side, and especially this delt. It's like the weakness. Yeah. If I'm doing like a dumbbell press or something, this right arm will just, as soon as I hit the point of fatigue, it just and the left carries. So it's getting to the point where the pain isn't horrible. If I'm training a lot of jiu-jitsu, it gets pretty bad. Mm-hmm. But I had the last couple of weeks off because of the move. Yeah. So I haven't trained jiu-jitsu, and the pain isn't that bad, but the weakness is still pretty significant. So I talked to Joe, and he's like, you got to reach out to Dr. Door. So anyway, it's a little sidebar there. I'll be reaching out to him soon.
You'll love him. He'll take care of you.
Okay, good. But anyway, yeah. So you were saying you were still working for Dr. Door.
Yeah, so I was working for Dr. Door, and to be honest, there weren't really enough clients at that point to be like full time. Like we had a handful of clients at Defranco's, and at that point, it was mostly like one-on-one sessions. Like, you know, we may have paired people up like in twos, but the training model was more like one-on-one, and there just weren't enough, you know, between Cam leaving and me starting, and you know, there just weren't that many people in February of 2020. So I was still supplementing like that income with working for Dr. Door.
Mm-hmm.
So this was February. March hits. I remember a Friday, I went into Dr. Door's, you know, left. He texted me like Saturday morning. He was like, hey, man, like, you know, give me a call when you can. So he calls me, and, you know, he's like, dude, I'm losing patience. I can't keep you on, you know, I'm sorry. I was like, hey, you know, no hard feelings. Like, I get it. You know, you got to run your business.
Right.
So, and we had to close the gym. So it was like that 1 week. I remember, you know, I get the call on Friday from Dr. Door. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I still got the clients at the gym. Monday morning rolls around, and Joe texts me. He's like, hey, bro, I think we gotta close the gym. So I'm like, shit, man, what am I gonna do?
Right.
So luckily, my father-in-law is a contractor. So literally Friday afternoon, I left Dr. Door's. Monday morning, I was like shoveling concrete for my father-in-law. For a good, like, it was March, April, May, probably till June, I worked for him full time. And in that time, the clients that we did have at the gym, I was in touch with them, and we would do video workouts. So like some of them had access to a gym, some of them didn't. But I literally remember finishing a day of work for my father-in-law. Wasn't my father-in-law at the time, but father-in-law now, sitting in the truck, you know, after work, sweating just profusely, and like on FaceTime with some of my high school guys, like, all right, guys, you know, we're going to deadlift, like, you know, I'm going to watch you guys. So, you know, everybody kind of had to do what they had to do.
Yeah.
But, and at that time too, Joe wasn't doing any like one-on-one online training,
Mm-hmm.
which was the perfect time to start it. So I had approached him with that. I was like, listen, we can't train people in the gym, you know, but I know you have a large audience, and I know people would find value in training online. You know, let's figure this out. And, you know, we worked together to come up with like our own online programming, which was cool. So that was kind of the start of that. So I was working for my father-in-law, training some clients online. And then the clients that we had in the gym, you know, doing video calls with them and just making it work with whatever they had in their house, whether they had a gym or didn't. And then, so we did that for a couple months, and then we ended up opening back in like, I think it was like late June, early July, something like that of 2020. You know, when we had to do the whole, like, make sure the gym was clean. And fortunately, we're a small enough gym where it wasn't, you know, a big problem. And yeah, and then from there, we've kind of built up ever since. But that was COVID, man.
It was crazy fucking time, dude. I remember that. It was we did all Zoom workouts.
Okay.
And it was what we did was we had different times, and we kept everybody in groups,
Mm-hmm.
because some people had zero equipment, some people had bands, some people had a few light dumbbells, some people had nothing. So it was we were just like, we're gonna do body weight only.
Yeah.
And we just put together like just circuits of shit that we can do just to kind of just get their heart rate going, just kind of get them moving, right? It was like,
Smart.
So we did a lot of abdominal work. We did different plank variations. We did a fuck ton of lunge variations. You know, anything that we could just get, we got as creative as possible. And we just kept with our same system. So it was like every 3 to 4 weeks, we were just putting a new program in place. And, we were able to retain about 60% of our members through it, which was great, you know, because we had, I don't know, I want to say at the time somewhere around 150-ish people, give or take, or something like that. And so the fact that we were able to get creative and just retain people
That's awesome.
was huge, because we still had payroll, we still had all these other
Yeah.
things, so I had 2 coaches, 2 trainers working for me at the time. It was a crazy time, man, but the people that I think because when you look at what happened to the industry, and I know at that point you were kind of just getting started as far as like working full time.
Yeah.
But if you look at the industry, we lost I think it was 50% of trainers, coaches were just completely done.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, right? And I think the big difference is the people that got through it, not to listen, maybe you threw in the towel because you wanted to at that point for whatever reason. So I'm not discrediting you, but the people that really stuck with it are the people that really just eat, sleep, and breathe and love this shit, and figured out a way to just make it work. Like everybody's taking a hit right now, but you got to fucking figure out a way to make this work.
Yeah.
So anyway, just maybe think of that for considering what you guys did, making that shift.
It's a testament to you, man. Like, you love this shit. It's what you eat, breathe, sleep. Like, you're going to figure it out,
Yep, totally. So who are you working with mostly these days? Do you have a good combo of athletes in Gen Pop? Is it mostly athletes, mostly Gen Pop? What do you got going on?
So it used to be like 70% athletes, 30% adults.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past couple of years, I've made a big push to not exclude athletes. Like, listen, I still love training athletes. Like, it's awesome. You get a good group of high school athletes. Like, nothing makes you feel young like that. You know, when you don't even understand their lingo, you're like, dude, what the hell did you just say?
What rapper did you just say, dude? Who the fuck is that?
Get out of here, dude. But we've shifted. It's probably closer to 50-50 now. Okay. Adults, athletes. And I mean, our training model, I kind of had to adapt for like the clientele we have, because we still do get like some NFL guys that come in. What's been the coolest experience, I think, about working, with Joe at Defranco's is like just the vast amount of different clientele that I've had to write programs for, which it forces you to be a better coach and learn and read and be like, all right, well, how am I going to help this person?
Right.
Because I literally have had 11-year-old kids, and I also have everyone in between from that 11-year-old kid to I have a 70-year-old man who had a knee surgery who literally couldn't bend his knee. And everyone in between, every age group, men, women, athletes, non-athletes. So it's been cool to like be forced to learn about all these things and just program for that many different clients. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Generally speaking, what have you found to be some of the biggest differences and maybe the way you program, or just differences in general between training Gen Pop and athletes?
Yeah, it's a great question. With athletes, and this answer might surprise you, with athletes, I'm very guided by the numbers. So, in other words, like, I'm testing them every 4 weeks in different metrics, depending on the sport they play, depending on their goals, depending on what they need. So I'm testing different types of jumps. I might test like a med ball throw, the velocity of a med ball throw, and I'm using that to guide my training with them. Mm-hmm. The adults, it's more like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, what are we trying to accomplish here? Mm-hmm. So actually, every 4 weeks, I send a questionnaire out to the adults, and I'm like, hey, how do you feel like training's going? Like, what's your main goal right now? Like, have your goals shifted? What are we doing? Like, I want to be on the same page with them.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest difference is giving the athletes what they need versus what they want sometimes. Like, I get high school boys like, bro, give me more arms. Like, I need bigger arms. And I'm like, well, listen, your dad is paying me to make you better at baseball. I don't really give a shit how big your arms are. Right. So instead of arms, we're going to be doing, this med ball work. And with adults, it's like, I want bigger arms. Cool, bro. We're doing all the arm work. Whatever you want,
Right.
So I think that's the biggest difference in terms of programming, is like letting the numbers guide me with the athletes. It's like, what do we need? And then give them a little bit of what they want. Whereas the adults, it's like more of a conversation. It's a two-way street, What do you want? How can I get you there? Like, let's figure this out together. And then I'm still giving them what they need, but it's a little bit more of what they want.
Right. There's a blend there. Like, we all know people need to train in just the foundational movement patterns.
Yes.
Right. So
Yep.
it's like those are needs. But if you want to focus a little bit more on building those biceps because you fucking got a disc issue in your neck, I just want to do fucking curls and push downs all day on my right
More
side.
curls with the right side.
So yeah, no, I think that's a great way to look at it. What about so speaking of the movement patterns and stuff like that, because I don't know if you agree, but what I found is that, aside from what you just said, and conditioning being the big factor based on the sport or whatever their specific position is, if it's a quarterback or a baseball player, but just generally just putting a blanket statement out there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of similarity between training Mr. Jones and training somebody from the NFL, meaning we're still going to train these movement patterns. We're still going to focus on building strength. We're still going to focus on stability. We're still going to focus on mobility. We're still going to now it just gets a little bit more specific when you have an athlete, right? So you start to make these specific adjustments. And I guess just kind of looking from at that regard, like, I guess, what do you feel are some of, I don't know, like, if let's say you have an NFL running back, right? And you have Mr. Jones. Are those two guys training together in the same session, or do you have them come at different times so you could really program exclusively for those athletes versus Gen Pop?
So it's a great question, and I feel like I need to back up a little bit and kind of explain like the training model. Yeah. So I was kind of getting there, and then I kind of got off topic.
Sure.
But, I'll explain that, and then I'll try to answer the question. But so basically, we do semi-private personal training. So any client can come to any session that I have, and they can train together. So I have 11, 12-year-old kids training right alongside that 70-year-old man who has the knee surgery, who trains right alongside guy in the NFL running back, right? Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about that, in my opinion, is that it makes everyone's bond in the gym a lot more strong. Yeah. So everyone knows each other. Everyone, is rooting for everyone. All my adults know, like, when the high school kids have games and they're asking them about them and, how'd you play? And, who made first team all county and this and that. So I think it makes for a very cool environment, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And it also just made sense doing that training model from the clients that I had. So we had such a diverse amount of clientele. We still do, and especially when I first started, that it made sense for everyone to have their own program. So I know you do things a little bit differently. You do more like groups, right? So it's like all adults, and they're, you're making adjustments on the fly, but it's generally, one program.
Yep.
But I always felt like we had such a diverse clientele that I needed to give, my running back in the NFL his own program. Sure. Or, my 11-year-old kid, like, he needed to do something that was a little bit different. And, Mary from down the street who has a torn rotator cuff, like, she needs, a program.
Right.
So that's the model that I've adopted and has worked really well for us. So to answer your question, I'll have my running back, he'll train right alongside, Mr. Jones from, wherever, who's just training to have a bigger chest and look better for Memorial Day weekend. But they're each doing their own workout. It's like, written for them based on, an assessment when they come in. But kind of going back to what you were saying about the foundational movement patterns, it probably is more similar than people think. Like, I'm letting the numbers kind of guide the way I'm going to write an athlete's program more. But they're both still squatting. They're both still hinging. They're both still lunging. They're both still pushing horizontally and pushing vertically and pulling horizontally and pulling vertically. So they just might look a little bit different depending on their goals, injury history, what they're trying to accomplish, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think what people think of when they think of training, when they think of training athletes is like the, kind of just, I don't know, shuffling through ladders and speed ladders and that type of stuff. And I think especially parents of younger athletes, right? Or that's what they think they need to do versus just like, hey, there's a lot of basics here that we're missing. You know, like they're really weak, or they have this lack of mobility, or they have this lack of stability. And we need to just improving those things is going to have more carryover on the soccer field or on the football field for your 13-year-old kid than having them just kind of run around and go through ladders and stuff like that. And I think for the younger population, parents listening, I think that's one of the biggest things that they need to look at as far as like, hey, what does your son or daughter need? It may not necessarily, like, not to say that there's no value to a speed ladder, but the foundational stuff is going to have way more carryover, in my opinion, to any sport.
Yeah, I totally agree. Most kids, like, we assess them and look at what they need. Like, do they need more speed? Do they need more power? Do they need more strength? Most of them need more strength,
right,
if we're being honest. And that's going to push the needle more than doing a bunch of speed ladders. Like, and a lot of that stuff tends to be more gimmicky. And, like, I'm not trying to shit on anyone who's making a living. And, I know there's speed schools that get great results, but a lot of times it's like this kid just needs to spend years developing strength, and that strength is going to carry over a lot better than if they're just doing speed ladders and shuffles and like, all this gimmicky stuff that, on the surface might look like it would carry over better, but in reality, it's like, it's not going to move the needle that much.
Right. And especially in regards to injury prevention too, right? Like a lack of strength, a lack of stability, a lack of mobility, like those are the things that's going to help bulletproof you more from injury, right? If you get those joints mobile, you get them stable, you're developing strength, like all of those things are not only going to help your performance, but they're also going to carry over for injury prevention as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I wanted to ask you, so I always like the origin story, right? So just to kind of backtrack a little bit here. So what got you into the industry? Like, why did you decide that, okay, I want to go this route. I want to be a coach. I want to be a trainer, get in the fitness industry?
Yeah. So, man, I've always been a super, super skinny kid growing up, like to the point where my parents would bring me to the doctor as a kid and they'd be like, hey, we think something's wrong with him. Like, this kid eats everything and he's still super skinny. And, the doctor's like, nah, he's fine. Just a skinny kid, I remember being in 8th grade and being in history class. And I sat in the front row, not by choice, but just we had assigned seats. And our history teacher was going over Michelangelo, which Michelangelo was the first sculptor who sculpted people how they actually look. Whereas before Michelangelo, most sculptors would make people look like superheroes. They'd make them look super strong, super muscular, make the women look like ridiculously beautiful. And he was explaining this to us. And he's explaining how, Michelangelo would make people that look like, and he pauses and he looks right at me and he goes, like Calvin. And everyone in the class laughs, and the kid next to me turns to me. He's like, dude, you're so skinny. Like, ha. And that was the first time I ever remember being like ashamed of how I look.
Yeah.
And everyone's laughing. I'm turning bright red. And I'm like, man, I guess I am really skinny. Like, I never really thought about it till then. It's 8th grade. Like, everybody's changing. So after that was really where like it started me down a road of like just not being comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
Like, I remember going to high school and literally wearing 2 long sleeve shirts, like even in the spring and summer, because I was embarrassed of how skinny my arms were, and just not knowing like anything, not knowing how to change my body, not knowing like, I would read stuff in fitness magazines and try to work out, but like, I was a kid. I didn't know any better.
Sure.
And then in high school, I got into track and I started doing pole vault. Mostly because I thought it was cool and I didn't really want to run. And getting into pole vault, in order to get better at pole vault, I got into training. I was like, okay, well, the coach would have us lift weights, and I kind of got bit by the iron bug, right? Because I start lifting weights, start getting stronger, start seeing better results in pole vault, and I'm like, oh man, like this is cool. Like I started to see my body change for the first time ever, and started to like fill out t-shirts and be like, man, this is really cool. And that kept going in college. Because in college, it's like all you have to do is go to class. You know, I lived on campus for the first year, so I had like a meal swipe. It's like you can just eat as much as you want, train. And that's where I really fell in love with training and saw my body change and realized that I could, you know, even if you're not happy with something, or you're not, you know, if you don't like how you look, like you can change that. And I never had seen that before in my life. And it really gave me a confidence that I had never had up until that point. And it all was so that I could get better at pole vault. Like that was my main reason for training and lifting weights and getting stronger.
Were you still doing pole vault in college?
Yeah, so I pole vaulted with Bronco all 4 years of high school and all 4 years of college.
Got it.
Again, going full circle, coming back to Bronco, he was the one who was really like, you know, you need to get training, and, you know, just got to start lifting weights. And so throughout college, that was where I saw the biggest change in myself, realized this gave me a confidence I never knew was possible. And throughout college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My major, I had set myself up so that I could be a police officer at the end. And my senior year, I remember all my friends were doing like ride-alongs, and they were, you know, getting internships at police departments. And I was like, man, I just love fitness. Like I want to do something in fitness. I don't know what it is, but if I can give this to other people, like show them that they can be more confident in themselves and change how they are, I want to, you know, however that looks. And so I graduated, and I actually didn't study exercise phys or anything like that in college. It was my major was sociology and criminology. Okay. And but yeah, man, I remember being in the back of classrooms, like reading. I'm drawing a blank, but what's that big the big forum everyone was on? T-Nation. T-Nation. Yep, just reading T-Nation article after T-Nation article, and yeah, man, that's how I got into it, and that's the reason that I really enjoy it and got into it.
You know what I want to know? What's that fucking history teacher doing right now? Because
I actually, it's funny, like he's not a bad dude, and whenever I tell a story, like I've written it on Instagram and stuff before, but I don't use his real name because I don't want to blow him up. Like, he was just trying to make the class laugh, you know, and like I was front row and super skinny sitting there in my t-shirt, and so for him it was an easy, like, you know, way to bust my balls. But
and you know what, it probably sparked something. It sparked a career for you, right? Sometimes it
really did.
That, right?
That was like, when I think back, that was like the starting point. That was like, you know, like I said, it was the first moment I'd ever been ashamed of how I looked and didn't like it. It was like, oh wow, like I don't like this. I don't like this feeling. What
you said there is powerful, though. It's like you discovered that if you don't like something about yourself, change it. You have the fucking power to change it. I think a lot of people take the power away from themselves, and they want to point fingers at external things, like you know, whatever their circumstances are in life. You know, even outside of fitness, right? But you know, within fitness, we might blame genetics. We might blame, you know, whatever the fuck you want to blame. Herniated discs, right? At the end of the day, it's up to you. It's up to you. You have the fucking power, and you're in the driver's seat, and you have the pens in your hands to write your own story, you know, and you did that at a young age. You know what got me into training?
No.
Like really training, so, you know, I had my cousin John Alvino. I think you know him, right? You know John?
I don't know him personally. I think I follow him on Instagram.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's out of his mind.
So in this day and age, we're best friends.
Yeah. Got it. So he's been in the industry a long time. So he got me into it. But the thing that really got me like going and fired up about training, Mark Batista.
Okay.
Mark Batista is this little Filipino dude. 7th grade, he used to beat everybody in arm wrestling. He used to smoke me, and I was bigger than him. I was one of the stronger guys, like, in my grade.
Yeah.
Fucking Mark Batista was the best arm wrestler of all time, dude.
No shit.
The best, and you would never think it, too. But he had a big fucking bicep when he flexed, and I was like, damn, dude, I got to beat this guy. So I had a Modell's that was like Remember Modell's?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Modell's was like the sporting goods store.
It was like Dick's, but
Yeah. And it was probably like, I don't know, 2 miles down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked my ass to Modell's, and I had enough money to buy one 20-pound dumbbell. You know those hexagon dumbbells? So I bought a 20-pound dumbbell, and I remember I was like, how old are you in 7th grade? 12, 13 maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
So it was me and 2 of my friends, and we're like fucking struggling to get this thing back to my house. And we're like, I passed it to my buddy Mike. He passes it back to my buddy Nick. He gives it back to me. We're all just like working our asses off to get this thing back.
Get so jacked with this dumbbell.
Dude, I swear to God, that was the thought that was going through my mind.
Hell yeah.
And so that whole summer, 7th grade, I was doing fucking curls every night, dude. Push-ups and curls and abs, right? Like every fucking day. And 8th grade, came back, and I fucked up Mark Batista in arm wrestling, dude.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. But seriously, though, that was the thing that got me to see, like, you can get stronger. You could build a bigger muscle, right? Like, and actually see it firsthand. It sounds silly, sounds corny. But then after that, it was like 8th grade, freshman year, you know, like I really started to get excited about training and, you know, for wrestling, for football and all that stuff. So it just kind of stuck with me. But that was the initial thing. So I always think back, and I want to thank you, Mark Batista, for fucking me up in arm wrestling all those years.
Dude, you don't want to know what I want to know?
What's that?
What's Mark Batista doing right now?
I know what he's doing right now. So he cut my hair for years.
Oh, no shit.
Yep. And now he owns a bubble tea shop, as far as I know, over in Union. So shout out to you, Mark Batista. You're the man. But so anyway.
That's funny.
Back to you know, your current clients and stuff like that. Because I think one thing that you do a really great job of is simplifying the fitness and nutrition. And you do a great job of that on your Instagram.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I think that one of the biggest things when it comes to especially Gen Pop, and athletes too, right? Most people look at it, professional athletes, and they think that their diets are flawless, but that's not necessarily the case. But let's just speak to you know, general population clients right now. Their biggest goal, for the most part, is fat loss. Some want to build muscle, and of course, we want to do all that stuff. But fat loss is usually one of the biggest things.
Yep.
And nutrition is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you do to help your clients adhere to their nutrition plans? Because as you know, that's the fucking biggest battle.
It sure is. Man, that is the hardest part, just getting them to do what you say, because the plan is kind of the easy part. Like, you can find out what to do. It's finding stuff that like fits their lifestyle. Like, I'll give you an example. So this week, I'm working with a young woman who's trying to lose weight, and I'm a big, you know, I don't know what your how you approach nutrition, but I'm a big fan of calorie counting, just because it's the most flexible way you can you know, incorporate things you like, but, you know, get there the fastest and most efficient way. Mm-hmm. So one of the things she struggled with is, like, she gets to the end of her day and, you know, she has like, oh, I have to get 80 grams of protein in. Like, how am I supposed to do that? And so finding ways to like stack habits has been a big game changer for her. So like, one of the things we're doing is first thing in the morning, so first thing I said was, hey, what's something you do every day without fail? Like, one habit that you already do. She's like, well, every morning I wake up, I have coffee, and I sit and usually, like, you know, read the news on my phone or scroll through Instagram, you know, whatever. I'm like, cool. How long does that take? I'm usually there like 5-10 minutes. I'm like, great. Since you already do that habit, since you're already doing that, let's do this. I want you to plan out your day. So take the 5 minutes in MyFitnessPal and plan out what you're going to have. Because I gave you the plan. You know what the plan is. Just do it. It takes, you know, 5 minutes, plan out what you're going to have. And it's okay if your day gets screwed up and you don't end up sticking to what you do. Mm-hmm. But let's get in the habit of that. And I had her send me a screenshot of her plan every single day. Okay. So now it's been a week. She's starting to get in the habit of that. And that's been a big game changer for her, as far as like, okay, now I can evenly space out my protein through the day. I'm not just like getting to dinner time and it's like, how the fuck am I supposed to eat all this protein? Like, you know, I screwed up earlier in the day. Then you feel like a failure. Then you're going into the next day and it's like, you know, what am I going to do? So having her get that habit kind of down, and it's only been, you know, a week, but it's already been a big game changer because now she's hit a week of nutrition way more consistently than she has in the past.
Right.
So I think doing stuff like that, like finding ways for clients to make it fit into their lifestyle, and that worked great for her because that was her habit first thing in the morning. But for somebody else, that may not have worked, and we would have had to come up with a different plan and,
Right.
and kind of troubleshoot and figure out a way to make it more sustainable for them. But dude, it is tricky trying to
It is.
get clients to do what you want or what you know is right for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best coaches can do that instead of just telling your client, like, hey, we're going to do this. It's getting the client to almost come up with the idea, like, hey, what do you think would be a good way to do this? How do you think we could figure this out? And then getting the client to come to the conclusion and making them feel like, wow, I did this, which is what you want. You want them to have that self-efficacy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we've tried both. If I'm being honest, it's like we've tried teaching them how to count calories. We've also tried teaching our clients just kind of I think the biggest thing now that we not the biggest thing, but a big thing now that we really try to turn into a habit, to your point, is meal prep. And if they're not going to meal prep, to order food and also grocery shopping. So like one of the big habits that we try to help them create initially, it's when are you going to go grocery shopping? Pick a day, pick a time that you're going to go grocery shopping. Pick a day, pick a time that you're going to do your meal prep. Just give me a half hour once a week or 40 minutes once a week. And so we just we focus on that right now because one of the biggest things is that they don't have time to cook. They don't have time, that's one of the biggest obstacles for them. So we try to simplify that as much as possible. Because I think for everyone listening right now, if your goal this summer, you want to get leaner, you want to lose body fat, you want to transform your physique in any way, you maybe just want to get healthier. The biggest thing for you is to develop a meal plan that's going to work for you, but nothing, if you don't have food prepared, like nothing is going to work, right? So it's like preparation is going to be the key. And this stuff is, listen, you could take it far and you could go really in depth on this topic, but to just keep things simple for 99% of people out there, it's just getting used to the basics. Like whether it be, using calories to guide you, habits with the stuff that we just talked about, like those are the things that really simplify this entire process. And if you just fucking keep it simple, it's going to be so much easier to actually hit your goal. You don't have to overthink this stuff so much.
Yeah, I think you said something super valuable there, is like make it as simple as you can. And I think that's what I try to do too, is like, hey, listen, you can get easily lost in nutrition. You scroll on Instagram and you might have 5 different people telling you 5 different things.
Yeah.
Don't eat eggs. Eggs are the best thing ever. Don't eat meat. Meat's the best thing ever. Vegetables
Only
will kill
eat
you.
meat.
Vegetables are great. It's like, dude, it's a nightmare. But, if you can simplify it for your clients and make it, like you said, as simple as possible, that's where you're going to have the most success, I think.
Yeah, keep it simple. You got to eat raw liver 6 times a day, guys. That's gonna be the game changer for you.
That's the secret, dude.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just said it.
Awesome. Well, Cal, this was really great, man. It was great chopping it up with you. And honestly, it's been awesome to see you grow. I've had the opportunity to obviously, get to know Joe on a personal level. He was one of my mentors early on, both in training, like everybody else, but also he was one of my first mentors on the business side of things. And, Joe and I would meet once a year, every year since the first time I actually met him in person back in 2015. And now our relationship has evolved. We've become business partners in the Iron Business Blueprint, which is a 90-day coaching program for gym owners who want to grow and scale their gyms. But through my time, like meeting Joe, like meeting you when you were just a kid over at Bronco's place, right? Until I saw you deadlifting dump trucks, to now it's like you have grown, you've come into your own, you've made a name for yourself in the industry, and I'm proud of you, dude. It's been really cool to see you come up. Reminds me a lot of myself, kind of growing through the industry too. So I just shout out to you, man, and congratulations. I'm really happy for all your success.
Well, dude, I appreciate it. Those very kind words. Right back at you. It's been cool to watch you grow too, from seeing your first podcast to, seeing what you're doing now. It's very cool. Seeing what you're doing with Joe, with the Iron Business Blueprint, it's very cool, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Where could everybody find you if they want to get a hold of you, if they want to work with you, Instagram, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Instagram, and I think I jumped on Instagram early on, so I got the only Calvin Hartman name on Instagram, which is cool. And then my website is calvinhartman.com. So I'm pretty active on there too. I've been writing articles for the past couple of years, almost like manuals for my clients. So articles on how to count calories, what calorie cycling is, can you drink alcohol and lose weight? All that kind of stuff I try to answer in a long format. So if clients have questions, I can answer it in the gym as best I can, but I can also hey, go read this article because it's what I wrote and what I think would be most helpful. So those are really the only two places I'm at the moment.
That's great. Are you doing online coaching as well, or is it just in person?
So yeah, I do a little bit of online coaching, and then obviously with Joe as well. But yeah, we got both going on.
All right, so you got options, guys. If you want to work with Cal, make sure you give him a follow, hit him up. And Cal, thank you again for coming on. And for the rest of you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you next week on another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. Peace.